Alright, Robo Taminas, did you watch the assigned movie for today's figure review?
Yes, we watched it 201 times.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's a bit excessive, but I appreciate the dedication. So what did you think?
Blood. So much blood. Which was awesome.
No. Blood? I don't think there was a whole lot of blood in Page's 2019 autobiographical film Fighting With My Family.
Wait, what movie were we supposed to watch?
Fighting With My Family, starring Vince Vaughn, Florence Pugh, The Rock, and Cersei from Game of Freaking Thrones.
Oh, oops.
What do you mean, oops? What did y'all watch?
We watched Fighting With My Family, a movie about a family of vampires. Well, we actually discovered the movie was X-rated, so we turned it off, and we turned on Twilight and watched it 200 times. That is the superior vampire flick.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So you ended up from supposed to be watching Fighting With My Family to watching Biting With My Family, which is apparently X-rated, to somehow watching Twilight. Do I have this correct?
Affirmative.
Well, that is freaking awesome! I love Twilight! That is one of the best movies of all time. Have you seen all of them? They're great. And you know what? No worries about today's intro. We can save the Page movie intro for Saraya's next AEW figure, which more than likely gives us about 2 years. So I'm going to get started on this review.
You know, Robo Tamina 1? I bet you Mayor Aaron is totally on Team Edward.
Hey y'all, welcome to Lumberjillville. Women's wrestling lives here. Now before we get started with today's figure review, I just want to remind you to please hit subscribe to become an official resident of LJV and get a first look at all future women's wrestling figure reviews, like today's much anticipated review of AEW Unrivaled Series 15 Saraya. So this is Saraya or Paige's very first AEW figure. So I think in the future I'll do a battle of the sculpts between her best WWE Elite and this Unrivaled 15 to see which one comes out on top. But for today's video's sake, we will do a comparison later in the review where I do compare this figure to two of her other Elites to kind of see how they stack up. But I'm excited for this figure. I'm a big fan of Paige, or Saraya, whatever you want to call her. And yeah, I've been really waiting for this figure for a while. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at this figure, starting out with the packaging. Alright, so let's kick this review off by taking a closer look at the packaging. Now, I say this every time I review any AEW women's figure, and that's that I honestly believe the AEW Jazwares line is the best wrestling figure packaging available today. I mean, I think it's a contender for the best action figure packaging out there. I just absolutely love the color schemes, the overall design of it, and the aesthetic is just unbelievable. I can't say enough good about how much I love the packaging here. With the Unrivaled line, we get the black with the gold accents and the gold backdrop. And with the Unmatched line, we get black with silver accents and the blue backdrop. So yeah, I think the color choices, the design choices are just superior to other lines out there. I absolutely love it. And I love that they haven't changed it since the start of the line. That's one thing that I do critique Mattel on, is they change their Elite packaging a lot, and it seems to have really declined over the last couple of years, especially as far as the quality of the cardboard goes. But anyway, looking at this figure, MOC, it looks really, really cool. I like how it's displayed. We have a couple extra hands, although I noticed we don't have like the rock and roll hands, and I wish we had the rock and roll hands. I was doing like this, Wolfpack. No, I wish we had some rock and roll hands in there, but I think the figure looks good displayed with that really aesthetic jacket on. It looks awesome. I can't wait to take a closer look at this figure. We have an image of the stunning, beautiful, and groundbreaking Saraya on the front, or Paige, as you may know her in WWE. Her name on the side, we have the Series 15. She's number 149. Little image of her on that side, AEW logo on that. And then taking a look on the back, we have an image that's totally not what this figure is supposed to depict. So it's been a while since Jazwares has missed the mark as far as capturing an image of what the figure is supposed to represent, and they absolutely did not do that here, okay? So on here, it says that this is from the February 22nd, 2023 Dynamite, which I can tell you from my research is completely wrong. She might have worn this. She definitely wore a black jacket on that Dynamite episode. But what this attire is from, I'll get to in the next segment. At least what this jacket and the ring attire underneath is from. But yeah, that drives me nuts how they messed that date up. Like, there's got to be someone who their job is to look up the date and try to get the date and the image to match the figure. And here they messed it up. And they used to mess it up all the time, but it's been a while. So either way, at least the image looks cool on the back. It's just not accurate to what the figure depicts. And then we have the rest of the line there. So what we're going to do to open it up, this is always a massacre. Okay, I hope you're ready for Jilloween, because every time I open up an AEW figure, it's an absolute disaster. I just have not found any clean way to open up the figure and keep the packaging mint to where I could put the figure back in the packaging. So I don't worry about it, really. I cut that tape on the bottom. I'm going to cut the tape on the side. There should be 3 pieces on the side to cut here. Okay. And then one up top here, as I'm doing it off camera. Okay. And now that I cut that, whatever. You know what? There we go. Now I'm going to pull this bubble away, take the figure out, and let's take a closer look. AEW Unrivaled Series 15 Saraya. This attire is from the 2022 AEW Full Gear pay-per-view, which took place on November 19th. On this night, Saraya would defeat Dr. Britt Baker in her debut AEW match. Alright, so my overall first impressions of this figure are actually really good. Now, I'm not surprised, because more often than not, when AEW and Jazwares makes a women's wrestling figure, they knock it out of the park and make it very unique to that woman specifically, and this figure's no different. Now, I know there were very contradicting opinions on this figure when images were released. A lot of people either loved the face or they absolutely hated it. That's what I found out by reading comments. Even when I posted a picture of the final product, a lot of people were commenting how horrible it was, but some people were commenting how awesome it was. So there's mixed opinions, and obviously we'll take a closer look at that face sculpt and scan here in the next segment. But my first impressions, I'm more in the boat of liking it. I think it looks pretty good. Now, we will take a closer look next, and I'll really analyze it, and we'll see and let y'all decide, all the viewers out there watching, what y'all think. Let me know in the comments. But my first impressions, I think this is a cool looking figure. I think it's awesome. And as I mentioned, AEW and Jazwares has done such a fantastic job, especially over the last couple years, of making each women's wrestling figure unique. There she goes. We're going to get to that. And this page is definitely unique. Now, I'm kind of hard on the company a lot of times because it's frustrating, because they do such a great job on their women's wrestling figures more often than not, but they just don't make enough of them, right? Even right now on Ringside Collectibles, at the time of this review, there's no pre-orders for Unrivaled 16 or the next Unmatched line, so who knows? This might be the last AEW women's wrestling figure we get the rest of the year, besides that Britt Baker Target exclusive Owen Hart tournament. But either way, I really do like this figure upon first impressions. Now, I am going to say a couple things. First off, she doesn't want to stand. This is definitely a figure that if you have a high up shelf like I do for my AEW women's figures, you need to pose her delicately, because she is very top heavy, especially with this jacket on, and her ankles are kind of weak. They're not loose by any means, but I think because there's excessive articulation in that lower body, it makes it real easy for her to fall over. It's not terrible. I've seen way worse, but that's something to keep in mind. Another thing is she looks like she might be a little tall. Now, scaling is not a huge thing that I cover in Lumberjillville because both Jazwares and Mattel are guilty of having their women's wrestling figures be completely out of scale. They haven't been in scale since I started this channel. Let's just be honest here. And she's listed at 5'8", so we'll compare this to the previous Jamie Hayter figure. Jamie Hayter is also listed at 5'8", and we'll see how they look next to each other. And obviously, we'll compare this to some Page WWE Elite figures and see how it looks. But yeah, my overall first impressions, this figure looks really cool. Now, she comes packaged with closed fist hands with tattoo detail, and she also comes with some hands to hold things. There's a cat hair, that's nice. But what's cool is she has tattoo detail on her hands here, and the tattoo detail looks really, really cool. Now, that's a complaint that I have with Jazwares, is a lot of times their tattoos don't actually look like tattoos. They look like transfer, like water transfers or something you put on a t-shirt, right? They're just not faded enough to look like tattoos. And I can kind of say that about these hand tattoos. They look more like stickers than anything, but either way, I'm glad that they included them. Now, obviously, the star of this review is this freaking jacket. Look at this jacket. Now, this jacket is absolutely stunning. It looks awesome. You can see there's a black collar, black shoulders with little spikes sculpted on, and then there's this just color explosion on the sleeves, on the front, on the back, and it looks absolutely stunning and fantastic. It is amazing, and that's where I did my research where this attire was from. She wore this jacket at Full Gear 2022. She did not wear this on the date on the back of the box. So yeah, this jacket, this jacket is absolutely stunning. I think it looks awesome. So what we're going to do next is we are going to try and remove this jacket. So let me zoom out because sometimes this is a little tricky. Now, a lot of times the AEW jackets are like a soft, pliable, movable rubber, and this is a little harder than usual. But as you can see, she's got plastic all on her arm. She had plastic on her torso as well to kind of protect bleeding, so that's a bit of a concern. So what we're going to do to take this jacket off, we're going to take her head off. Okay, and that is not what was supposed to happen there, folks. Alright, so I opened my second Saraya, and we're going to try taking the jacket off a different approach. I'm not going to take the head off of this one, and I'll show you real quickly next as to what happened and how to prevent that from happening to you. So I'm just going to remove her hands first, and I'm going to do it off camera so I can be a little more careful. Yikes. And we're going to keep her head on. So we have the hands off. We're just going to peel the jacket back, and you can see she has plastic on her arms to protect her arms. And yeah, you take the hands off, the jacket slides off perfectly. Now, looking at this jacket here, again, the detail is awesome. It is stunning. Wow. And it is a little thicker, a little harder than a lot of the previous rubber Jazwares jackets they used on the women's figures, but it looks really, really cool. All right, so let me cover what happened on that last attempt. Alright, so here is the Saraya that I literally kind of broke on camera. Now, I can put this head back into place, but as you can see here, there's plastic wear on the neck. So it is kind of damaged, kind of ruined, but hey, I can put her on display somewhere. So here's my biggest complaint. There's a stupid, unnecessary joint on all the AEW women's figures that allows the head to look down and look forward, and it's just stupid. They need to just keep the head on a straight ball joint like Mattel does, because this extra articulation really doesn't amount to anything, especially on the women's figures, because the hair prevents the movement to allow them to go back and forth. So yeah, if this stupid joint wasn't there, the head would have came off perfectly, but because it was there, it stretched out and left a stress mark there on the neck. So it'll pop back in just fine. But that's a huge complaint I have, is this stupid, unnecessary joint in the neck. And let me show you with the other one what it does. So it looks stupid for one. And for two, all it allows is the head to kind of go up and back. And like, you're not going to pose her like this ever. And if you do, I don't want to know about it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that joint is stupid. And it made me kind of ruined my first one. All right, on to the face sculpt, face scan, and hair sculpt. All right, so as far as the face sculpt, face scan, and hair sculpt goes, I actually quite like it. Now, this was a huge controversial topic when they showed off images. When I reposted the image of this figure, a lot of people either loved this face or they absolutely hated it. Me, I liked it, and having it in front of me, I can honestly tell you that I actually like it quite a bit. Now, I think there are some little things that might throw it off for those that didn't like it, I think the number one thing is she doesn't have really dark lipstick or black lipstick that she often wears. But if you look up what this attire is from, this is accurate as far as her lip color. Now, they could have put black lipstick on her or darker lipstick to really make it look a lot more like an ideal Saraya. But what they went with was accurate to the night she wore this jacket. Another thing that might make it seem a little off is the face height seems a little too short, right? So we will compare this, as I mentioned, to her previous Mattel Elite that was just amazing as far as the facial likeness goes, and we'll compare it. But I think it looks pretty good. Now, looking at it from the side here, it looks okay, we'll say, and from this side, it looks okay. So yeah, it's important to note that she has changed quite a bit over the years as far as her appearance goes. So I think they captured it nicely here, in my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think about this face sculpt, face scan, and hair sculpt, because I'm really curious. I honestly didn't understand the absolute hate that this figure got, because I thought they did a pretty good job here, and I still think that by looking at it. Now, as I mentioned, besides the dark lips, they could have added a little bit darker eyeliner, eyeshadow. I think that would have really helped it. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. It looks like Saraya. Now, as you can see, that stress mark, the plastic stress mark on the neck, and yeah, this is pretty much a broke figure. I did use this over my other Saraya to look at the face because my other one has a scan that's not printed on exactly how I want it, and this is the better scan. So I just need to get a hot air gun, hair dryer, or hot water and switch out the heads because I think this head isn't as good as the other one here. Look at that from the side. Ooh. But yeah, if you get the scan printed on right, I think it's a remarkable scan and a pretty good sculpt. I also like the black hair sculpt. It's really, really cool. Pretty simple, but it looks really good. So yeah, I like it. Let me know in the comments what you think. All right, so as far as the body sculpt and attire goes, I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park. And once again, the care and attention that Jazwares and AEW gives to these women's figures is amazing. It really doesn't get talked about enough how they use uniquely sculpted parts and pieces for most of their women's wrestling figures. Like, I want to see more. I wanted them to release that Abaddon, you know? I want them to release more women in the future because they do a good job when they do it. Okay, and this Saraya, it looks freaking fantastic. And the first thing I did notice and compare is I was wondering if the knee up was the same as Brandy. And I can tell you, by comparison, side by side, they're not. They're actually two completely uniquely sculpted pieces. So they didn't reuse the parts of Brandy on Saraya, and I can't tell you how awesome that is. I mean, that is something that Mattel is guilty of. They just copy and paste a lot of parts a lot of times and just reuse things more often than not, whereas Jazwares really doesn't do that a lot. And yeah, I think the final result is amazing. Now, this is one of those figures that it's almost a shame she comes with that jacket, even though that jacket's awesome, because the detail we have underneath is awesome. It is fantastic. I absolutely love this attire. Now, starting out, they got her skin tone accurate. It's a real palish type skin tone. It looks really, really good. Now, let's check out her tattoo details. So, on her right collarbone, we have a tattoo. Obviously, on her upper stomach, we have a tattoo. It looks really, really good. On her back, okay, I don't see any on her back. On her forearm, she has a tattoo on her right. And then on her hand, her left hand, we have a thumb tattoo. We also have a hand tattoo and a little side tattoo there. And on her right hand, we have a thumb tattoo, middle finger tattoo, which is cool, and then a side tattoo, which is actually, what does that say? Talk spit. That's funny. I wonder if it's actually a different word there. And yeah, the tattoo detail is really, really cool. Now, this is the most tattoo-filled Saraya figure or page figure that we've gotten. It looks really, really good. Now, moving on to the attire, this top. The chest is uniquely sculpted to her. Oh, she also has the tattoo over here, kind of underneath her chest. That looks really good. Now, this chest in this attire piece is awesome. It's sculpted. You get a little more visual of her chest on the side, which we don't see much in women's wrestling figures, but it's very accurate to what she wears, and I think that's a really cool detail, a nice little feature there that makes it accurate and makes it so unique. She also has these buckles on her upper top, and she has a bunch of silver studs painted on. We have netting painted across the chest. around the back. These straps are sculpted on, which is definitely nice. Now the bottoms are really cool. As we can see, they're kind of multi-layered here. Black on top, black a little further down with an opening on the side. Now you can tell that it was cast in a black and flesh color was painted over it there to give the appearance of skin showing through, but I think they do a good job there. And we have the fishnets painted on, which look really, really cool. And then we have these knee pads that are sculpted on, which allows for awesome, awesome movement. And we have these high black socks and then these boots. Now these boots are very unique. We even have the little things on the back that you pull to put them on. We have the stitching sculpted. Even the soles look really cool. Let's look at the bottoms. Okay, not much on the bottoms, but we got some tread there. So yeah, as far as the lower body goes, and I'm not sure if these were like custom thigh-high boots or if it's the knee pad sock going out down into these Page style boots, but these look really, really good. And yeah, overall the body sculpt and the attire to me is darn near flawless. All right, so as far as articulation goes, without me breaking the figure, she can move her head pretty good, and I'm not even gonna mess with that stupid neck joint. I'm bitter. Shoulders on a ball joint, it kind of clicks into place, which is very nice on the AEW figures. We have the upper arm swivel, double jointed elbows can really flex it. The wrist can turn. It can also flex up and extend. We have the upper torso swivel. Good movement there. We have a waist swivel here. We have a hip on a ball joint. Can move in all different directions. We have an upper thigh swivel. Double jointed knees. And because everything is sculpted on, we have nice movement there. We have a, not upper boot swivel, but we have a upper calf swivel, which would be the top of most boots on most women's wrestling figures, but we have a swivel there. And then the foot is very articulated. It can slide forward and back, and also go up and down, and it can rock side to side. So yeah, articulation-wise, this is awesome. All right, so now let's have a little fun. Let's do a little side-by-side comparison. Now, right off the bat, I have that Jamie Hayter Unmatched Series 8 that I reviewed previously on the channel, and I have her next to the Saraya because they're both listed at 5'8". And to me, they look like they're in scale with each other, which is rare nowadays. They look good next to each other, right? So we're going to sub her out, and we're going to tag in her WWE Mattel Elite Series 34 first in the line figure. So this was Mattel and WWE's first attempt at Paige, okay? The center figure is obviously today's Unrivaled Series 15, AEW's first take at Saraya or Paige. And on the right, we have, in my opinion, one of the top 10 best women's wrestling figures of all time. We have Elite 71, the Target exclusive collector's edition, released all the way back in 2020. Now, looking at these three side by side, something really stands out. Now, I know I did say I like the face sculpt and scan, but the head shape might have been a little bit off. But I'm telling you, that's definitely what's wrong with this AEW Unrivaled figure. I think next to the other pages, you can see that the head shape is just, it's weird. It's just weird. I feel like it's scaled down a little too much. If the head was scaled up a little bit, I think it would look a lot better. But I definitely think that's what's throwing it off, why a lot of people don't seem to like the face. And the scan, I think it's actually the shape of the head that is off. And as you can see, it is tiny compared to Mattel figures, and it does look out of proportion. So I will say that I think that is a issue that this figure has. I don't think it takes too much away from it, because I think as a standalone figure, it looks good. But next to the Mattel Paige figures, it definitely stands out. I mean, it looks like a younger version of Paige or something before her head grew, right? Because her head looks so small. That's absolutely crazy. Anyway, so let's start off with her first in line figure, Elite Series 34. I think they did a great job. I think they really, this is before TrueFX Space Scan technology, and I think they did an excellent job, especially with the eye makeup here, the eyeliner, the little dimple in the chin. I think this looks pretty darn good. Now, moving on to this collector's edition Elite 71, I think that this likeness is one of the best likenesses I have ever seen on a women's wrestling figure, and I still stand by that. This is an amazing figure. I need to get this figure MOC because that's how much I love it and how highly I think of it. I think it is stunning. Now, at the time that this figure came out, Saraya or Paige, it was a different time of her life, right? She was built differently, we'll say. And they did an excellent job here replicating exactly how she looked. And it's just a beautiful figure. It's a gorgeous figure. One of my favorites. I can't say enough about it. Now, if we compare that head alone to the AEW figure, you can see what I'm talking about as far as the scaling of the head. That head is too small on that new Saraya figure. It really is. And that's a disappointment because I think if that head was a little bit bigger, that face was a little bit longer, I think it would be in contention for best page Saraya figure, right? But as it stands right now, I really don't think it holds a candle to this Elite Series 71. I wasn't too sure how it would compare to it when I had them next to each other, but yeah. I think when we're comparing these two, it's a pretty easy decision as to which one is a better depiction and likeness, and I think it's his Elite 71 here. Now, it is important to say this is AEW and Jazwares' first attempt at a Saraya figure. Maybe we'll get more. Hopefully we don't have to wait 2 years, like I said. But yeah, I think the head is a little tiny, and even when I had her next to the Jamie, look at this. Look how tiny her head looks to Jamie's head. Look at these noggins here. I mean, yikes. So overall, I give AEW Unrivaled Series 15 Saraya an overall score of an 8 out of 10. Now this figure has one flaw, and that flaw is a pretty major flaw, and I really think it throws off the whole figure, and that's the size and shape of the head. I think everything else about this figure is amazing. The body sculpt, the attire, the skin tone, the tattoo detail. Heck, I even think the face sculpt and the scan is good. But the sizing, the scaling of that head is jarring. It really is. And I really didn't notice it until I put it next to that Jamie Hayter Unmatched Series 9 or put it next to the Mattel Page figures, and I realized that head is way too tiny, and it does throw off the whole aesthetic of the figure. And that's why it's only an 8 out of 10. I honestly think if that head was a little bigger, if it was more in scale and proportioned properly, I think this would be darn near a flawless figure, in my opinion. Now, do I think you should go out and get this figure? I really, really do, especially at the slow rate that AEW and Jazwares is releasing figures. Who knows if we'll get another Saraya AEW figure. So I definitely think it's worth picking up. And I'm definitely interested to know your feedback as far as the face and the head goes. My opinion is I think the head's just too small. I think the face is fine. But I'd love to hear what y'all think. Thanks for stopping by Lumberjillville. Women's wrestling lives here. To get a first look at all future women's wrestling figure reviews, make sure to hit subscribe and become an official resident of LJV today. Also, head on over to ringsidecollectibles.com and use coupon code LJV at checkout to save 10% on your next order of women's wrestling figures. Now, I have to say that there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of women's wrestling figure pre-orders that should be to Lumberjillville fairly soon, so look forward to those reviews. I'm really excited for some of the figures coming out. Now, I appreciate y'all watching, and have a great night, y'all.